Coalition strike Iran-backed Houthi targets in Yemen after a spate of ship attacks in the Red Sea. Guys, this information has literally just come out just minutes ago, and apparently this was a an unauthorized attack by the United States, and evidently the Democrats are not on board with this. So, based on what we're seeing here, it looks like President Joe Biden has actually moved forward with an attack. And it says here, Democrats slam President Biden for bypassing Congress to strike Yemen. Now, this is a big deal, guys. Now, first of all, this attack, it wasn't just carried out by the United States. In fact, United States worked hand in hand with Britain, as well as let's see, it looks like it's also Australia, the Netherlands, Bahrain, and Canada. Says here, the United States and Britain carried out a series of airstrikes on military locations located on Iran-backed Houthis early Friday, and of course their time is ahead of ours, so we're a little bit late. They're ahead of us. In response to the militant group's ongoing attacks on vessels traveling through the Red Sea. And we're being told that the attacks were on more than a dozen Houthi targets by air, surface, and subsurface platforms. The attacks were carried out with support from Australia, the Netherlands, Bahrain, never heard of that place, and Canada. If you guys have ever heard of Bahrain, I'm not even sure how you pronounce it. Let me know. A U.S. defense official says that the U.K. contributed the aircrafts. Interesting. So President Biden said he'd authorize the strikes, and we've been talking about this for weeks, guys. By the way, this is a live video right now. If you guys are able to see and hear me okay, do your boy a favor, drop a quick like for the video. Also subscribe to the channel if you're interested in updates like this. I try to keep you guys posted on everything that it matters to us, because even though these attacks are taking place overseas, we have received numerous reports, warnings, threats. We've been updated by the FBI to be on watch for attacks here on U.S. soil. And we've seen numerous threats. You guys have seen my recent videos. I've shared with you guys how many different state capitals and buildings where congressmen and women, our politicians, are working out of. Well, if you call it work. Ultimately, they have received numerous warnings forcing evacuations from up to 22 or 23 states, last I checked, where we saw these emergency evacuations, all because of these threats that have been sent in. Now, here's what's interesting. Democrats are not behind President Biden on this one. They are not supporting President Biden on this decision. In fact, Democrats slammed President Biden for bypassing Congress to strike Yemen. He goes on to say that some House Democrats they're frustrated. They're furious with the Biden administration for striking Houthi positions in Yemen without congressional approval on Thursday night. Obviously, it's Thursday night here. It's Friday for them. You guys understand the time zone differences. Ultimately, it says here, quote, the president needs to come to Congress before launching a strike against the Houthis in Yemen and involving us in another Middle East conflict. Clearly, the Democrats are not on board with President Joe Biden. This is not a good look for the presidential election going into 2024. Let me just tell you that. But in addition to that, it's kind of like, did President Biden just initiate, or, did he initiate a war with Iran since Iran backs the Houthis? I mean, are we entering into a World War III type of situation? We have multiple countries involved. We do not have agreement in Congress. Meanwhile, bombs were dropped from the aircrafts already. Can't pull those back. So, quote unquote, I will stand up for what? I will stand up for that regardless of whether a Democrat or Republican is in the White House, according to Representative Ro Khanna, who is a Democrat out of California. He goes on to say that this is in the articles. This is Article 1 of the Constitution. So did President Joe Biden just violate the Constitution? I mean, I understand that, there have been reports, rumors indicating about, his mental capabilities, his mental capacity. Was this a mental slip where he made a decision that he might later regret? My question is, I'll just leave that question for you guys. I'm just as curious as you guys are. And like I said, this information literally just came out moments ago, and I'm checking the comments. I'm glad you guys are hanging out with me today. We got well over 500 people here in the live, and I really appreciate you guys jumping in. I just want to check some of the comments here. So we got Brent in Bayou City. Brent says, I would say that this is a humongous violation, not just huge. Sweet and Sassy says, violates on a daily. Retretta says, Ord, help us. Americans, good people who love. Okay. So I'm seeing a number of people who are, number one, confirming that you're able to see and hear me. I really appreciate that. But number two, we're seeing a number of people who are just saying, President Biden has violated the Constitution. This is a really interesting situation. Again, this is breaking news, guys. If you're just now joining us, again, we have received reports that an airstrike has taken place, and essentially the United States worked hand in hand with Britain to carry out a series of airstrikes on multiple military locations, ultimately belonging to the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen just moments ago. And this attack was carried out with the support of Australia, the Netherlands, Bahrain, and Canada as well. So it wasn't just the United States. And apparently the UK contributed to the aircraft. So this was definitely a concerted effort. In addition to this, these Houthi attacks, Biden said, have endangered U.S. personnel and its allies and have threatened freedom of navigation. Quote, these targeted strikes are a clear message that the United States and our partners will not tolerate attacks on our personnel or allow hostile actors to imperil freedom of navigation in one of the world's most critical commerce routes. So was this an economical play? I've reported how much we're going to likely see the impact of our commercial ships, commercial vessels not being able to pass through the Red Sea, and the financial impact on our economy as the cost of moving goods around from point A to point B through the Red Sea, through the passage through the Red Sea, is going to drive up prices. It's going to impact our supply chain. As we've already seen, we know what happens when a supply chain gets impacted. We've seen, a pretty severe extent of that over the last 36 months. And what does that do to prices? It makes everything more and more expensive, and it causes everything to take longer to get here. And of course, delays, things are out of stock. It creates a huge mess. But in addition to that, it says here that the strikes came shortly after the White House called a lid on the president's engagement for the evening. So basically, they were trying to get President Biden to just, hey, let's cut it, let's shut it down for the evening, as he was not expected to discuss the matter publicly. And evidently he didn't discuss it publicly, but the aftermath is now clearly evident to the public, to the American people, to the world. It also follows news that the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin had not notified the president or other officials of his whereabouts for several days while he was in the ICU at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. The joint statement from the governments of Australia, Bahrain, Canada, Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, New Zealand, Southern Korea, and others said in a joint statement that the strikes were intended to disrupt and degrade the capabilities the Houthis use to threaten global trade and the lives of international mariners in one of the world's most critical waterways. So it sounds to me like this was a financial play. This was an economical play. This was a play that affected the world economy. We're a global economy. And it's very evident that they always say, follow the money, right? How many hundreds of billions of dollars have we sent over to the Ukraine, right? You got to follow the money. In anticipation of the attack, Houthi forces transported some weapons and equipment and fortified others. Citing a U.S. Defense official, local reports indicated that the Houthi militants were evacuating the Red Sea of Hudaydah? Yeah. So now what's really going to be interesting, and I can already kind of predict it now. You already know Press Secretary Karine Corinne Jean-Pierre is going to jump on tomorrow, or maybe even later on this evening, and try to clean up this mess, or try to salvage what has happened and attempt to save face. So it's going to be real interesting to see what she's got to say in the next. I can't imagine that she'd take any more than the next 12 hours to pop up on TV and give her version of what's going on. But yeah, and I don't know if I've seen so much of a lack of support within the Democratic Party. This is really interesting, guys. This is very interesting. It is very clear, and the Democrats are not even hiding this. They're not hiding that they do not support President Biden's decision here. And I'm seeing breaking news all over the place here. UK strikes Yemen with support from Australia, Bahrain, Canada, Netherlands. Yeah. This is going to be quite interesting. It's definitely a mess, to say the least. Now, here's the other thing. Here's the other side of the coin. China's watching this. China's seeing all of this unfold, and we've already talked about how thin the U.S. is stretching itself in terms of the involvement in all of these wars, whether it's a direct war, it's a proxy war, funding here, funding there. $34 trillion in national debt, guys. $34 trillion in national debt. I just reported less than 8 months ago that we had hit $33 trillion in national debt. So if you guys are paying attention, the rate that we're adding to our national debt it's climbing at more and more of an aggressive pace. And I can only predict that it's only going to become more parabolic going forward. So anyway, the United States cannot risk getting entangled in yet another decades-long conflict without congressional authorization. The White House must work with Congress before continuing these airstrikes in Yemen. This comes from Representative Pocan. Senior Republican lawmakers, however, have shown rare praise for Biden over the move. So this is a really interesting display of support and condemnation here. If you guys look at what's happening here, we're seeing that the Democrats do not support what President Biden has decided to do unofficially, right? There's no support from Congress on this one. But apparently, senior Republican lawmakers are in support, and they're showing praise for President Biden's move. So I wonder how many, like I said, 2024 presidential elections, I wonder how many Republicans or voters who typically would vote Republican might now, because of this one move, now be, able to kind of look at President Biden in a new light. And potentially, maybe even he can theoretically even win over some independent voters on top of that. It goes on to say here, quote, I welcome the U.S. and coalition operations against the Iran-backed Houthi terrorists responsible for disrupting international commerce in the Red Sea and attacking American vessels. President Biden's decision to use military force against these Iranian proxies is overdue. This comes from, take a wild guess what senator said this. And I'm going to just give you guys a quick hint. This came from a Republican senator. This is a statement clearly in support of what President Joe Biden has decided to do. Just take a wild guess. Who do you guys think this was? I'll give you a big, huge hint. He is the Republican senator who froze on camera about a year ago, and they thought he had a stroke. Drop your comments down below. Let me see who's going to get the answer first. All right, who's it going to be? Who's going to be? I'm looking at the comments. I see you guys. Somebody says Lindsey. Somebody said, there we go, McConnell. Brent in Bayou City said Mitch McConnell. Yes, Senator Minority Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky said these words in a statement. I'm just going to repeat it for those who are just joining. So again, for those of you guys who are just joining here, there was an airstrike attack which took place in Yemen, and the United States also in support by multiple countries, namely Britain, Australia, which is a continent, Netherlands, Bahrain, and Canada have all supported or been in support of these airstrikes in Yemen. Now, the statement, which comes as a surprise, and again, for those of you guys who are just now joining us, the statement that comes as a surprise is that the Democrats are not in support of what President Joe Biden has just authorized and the airstrike that has just taken place. Okay. So this airstrike that has taken place in Yemen was not authorized by Congress. The Democrats are not in support of it. However, it has come out that a Republican, namely Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, said this in a statement. Quote, I welcome the U.S. and coalition operations against the Iran-backed Houthis terrorists responsible for disrupting international commerce in the Red Sea and attacking American vessels. President Biden's decision to use military force against these Iranian proxies is overdue. So again, this came from Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who is a Republican out of Kentucky, and it's really surprising to see the leader, a key member of the Republican Party in support of President Joe Biden as a Democrat, his actions to basically bypass Congress altogether and carry out this airstrike. So again, I definitely expect to hear a lot from Karine Jean-Pierre tomorrow. Or I wouldn't even be surprised if she jumped on later on tonight. She probably already clocked out for the evening, but she'll probably get a phone call and say, "Hey, we need you to say something. Jump on camera." That's probably how it's going to work. Anyway. So we have nearly 700 people in the live, and I would love it if you guys could drop a quick like for the video. It really means a lot, and it lets YouTube know that, hey, this is information that more people need to hear about to get up to speed. If you appreciate the content, if you appreciate the updates, definitely consider subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate you guys. So it goes on to say here, quote, these attacks have endangered U.S. personnel, military mariners, and our partners, jeopardized trade, and threatened freedom of navigation. More than 50 nations have been affected in 27 attacks in international commercial shipping. Now, I don't personally know what the financial impact, good or bad, from the Iranian perspective, but it definitely doesn't look good that, the U.S. among numerous other supporting nations and countries have initiated this airstrike on the Iranian-backed Houthis. So I guess what I'm saying is I just don't know how Iran's going to see this. I don't know if Iran's going to see this as an aggressive move. I don't know if Iran is going to see this as defensive, or is Iran going to see this as offensive? I mean, I can't imagine how you would see it as offensive, since U.S. troops, vessels, commercial ships traveling through the Red Sea have been attacked for a very long time. So, but again, we'll have to wait and see how that unfolds. Your guess is as good as mine. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that Iran will take forceful action as in result or in response to what the United States has done with this most recent airstrike? Or do you think Iran's pretty much going to be like, all right, you know what? There was a good reason for this. I get it. Ships and vessels couldn't pass through. They were under fire multiple times. This was purely defensive, no harm, no foul. And so let me see what you guys are saying here. Pablo says, has World War III started? I certainly hope it has not. Good evening to all of you guys in here. Appreciate all of the well wishes. You guys are awesome. I see you, Retretta. I see you, Fredia Hale. I got Honky Kong in Roanoke, Virginia. What is going on, you guys? Rochelle T says McConnell is not well mentally. He has a brain freeze. I get brain freezes whenever I eat a lot of ice cream real fast, but not like what Mitch McConnell had the other day. Definitely not. Yeah. So very, very interesting how the Democrats are clearly not in support of what President Biden has pulled off in the last couple of hours here. Oh, wow. And here we go. So President Biden announced a statement that the U.S. led coordinated airstrike in Yemen with the U.K. and support with Canada, Australia, and Bahrain. He said that the targets were used by Houthi rebels to endanger freedom of navigation in one of the world's most vital waterways. Squad members, Representative Rashida Tlaib, who I believe was involved in one of the I want to say she was involved in one of the Palestinian protests that took place in New York. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys remember the details on that one. And Missouri Democrat Cori Bush joined the chorus of criticism. Both Democrats aimed at President Joe Biden for not seeking congressional approval. So I've probably found at least 3 Democrats that have gone on record not in support of what President Joe Biden has done. And I can see that Rashida Tlaib has also dropped a Twitter post at POTUS is violating Article 1 of the Constitution by carrying out airstrikes in Yemen without congressional approval. The American people are tired of endless war. Now, I don't think any person's going to deny that, we are tired of endless war. Goes on to say here, other Democrats also tweeted their displeasure. These airstrikes have not been authorized by Congress. The Constitution is clear. Congress has the sole authority to authorize military involvement in overseas conflicts. Every president must first come to Congress and ask for military authorization regardless of party. This came from Representative Val Hoyle, Democrat of Oregon. So that is the 4th Democrat that has gone on record that I found so far, not in support of President Joe Biden. So now this brings me to the next question, which is, can a president just literally just start a war because they woke up on the wrong side of the bed, bypass Congress, and just start bombing other countries? I'm just wondering, because I don't know how that works. If any of you guys have any kind of military background, military experience, I'm all ears. I'd love to see you guys comment down below what you know, because this is a little bit concerning to say the least, right? We have we have the Constitution, and when you bypass the Constitution, especially when it involves, war and different types of airstrikes, bombs. This could, depending upon where the airstrike took place, it could initiate a World War III situation. Could it not? I'm just saying. So, if we're going to embark in something that could have such, exponential ramifications, I don't know if I feel all that comfortable having one single person making that call. That's all I'm saying. Whether it's President Biden, whether it's a Republican, whether it's a Democrat, it doesn't matter. Should one person literally make the call for how many million Americans live here? Like 340 million Americans, right? I'm putting the question out there. Does that allow you guys to sleep well at night? How many times have you waken up in the middle of the night because you had a nightmare? I rarely dream, but I'm just thinking, imagine you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you're like, hey, go ahead and drop some nukes over there. I'm just saying. Anyway, drop me some comments, guys. I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on what is going on. Again, breaking news just released regarding the U.S. airstrike in Yemen, supported by numerous additional countries such as the UK, Australia, Netherlands, Canada, Bahrain. So I'm going to keep you guys updated on what's going on. If you haven't already, definitely hit the like button for the video. I really appreciate your support. If you haven't already, also consider subscribing to the channel. I'd love to have you a part of the family, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. You guys take care and be safe.